Hey everybody, Thomas Joseph here, and today I am thrilled to share with you a formula for the best blondies. Now, I'm going to encourage you to swap out that brownie recipe and try these really rich and delicious blondies. To start this recipe off, we need butter, and we're not using a small amount of butter at all. So I have 2.5 sticks of unsalted butter here. Now this first step is going to add richness and flavor to our blondie batter. It really is one of the tricks in making really rich and delicious blondies. Now a lot of recipes will just have you creaming butter and the sugars in a stand mixer, but this recipe here, we're going to brown the butter. So what we're doing there is we're browning the little bits of milk solids, and what that's doing is it's creating a really nutty, toasty flavor that is kind of secret and key to this blondie recipe. So browning butter, we've done this before. I'm using a small saucepan here, set over a medium to low heat, and it's gonna take about 7 to 9 minutes. And really what you're looking for is the milk solids. You'll start to see these little specks of milk solids in the butter will start to turn into this golden color, and that's when you know, and you'll be able to smell it as well, that the butter is browned. So it's been about 7 minutes here, guys, and I've turned off the heat because the butter is really fragrant and nutty. You can see that the milk solids have browned and are a nice kind of hazelnutty color, and that's when you know that the butter is ready. And I'm going to pour this into the bowl of my stand mixer here and let it cool slightly. Brown butter is one of my favorite ingredients to use, and it's not just for sweet applications, it's really fantastic in savory applications as well. But if you have a recipe for maybe like chocolate chip cookies or some type of quick bread or a loaf, what you can do, if it calls for melted butter, you can brown the butter, and what that will do is it will add extra flavor to whatever it is that you're making. So while this butter cools slightly, I'm gonna mix together my dry ingredients. Now, similar to what we had discussed when we talked about the science behind the brownie, blondies here, we want them to be kind of chewy and dense. We can't really say fudgy because we don't have the chocolate here, but we want that sort of texture. We don't want anything that's too cakey. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we need a higher ratio of fat to the flour. So we're using 2.5 sticks of butter, and I'm using 2.25 cups of all-purpose flour. So the ratio is more similar to those fudgy brownies that we had made in the past. So to this, I'm going to add salt. So salt is always necessary when we're baking because it helps to bring out all of the flavors. And I have 1.5 teaspoons of coarse kosher salt. To this, we're gonna add a little bit of leavener, and it's the same quantity. So it's 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. And remember guys, baking powder is typically sold as double acting baking powder. So what that means is it first reacts with a liquid, so when it's introduced to some moisture, and then also when it's introduced to heat, so into the oven. So I'm just gonna sift together the dry ingredients, evenly incorporating the salt and the baking powder. And it's been a few minutes, so our butter it's not cool, it's not cold, but it is room temperature. So I think it's fine that we start adding in the sugars. Now, I have 2 cups of packed light brown sugar. Now, light brown sugar is going to give your blondies or whatever it is that you're baking a chewy texture. So the reason we're using such a high quantity of this sugar is to make sure our blondies are chewy and a little bit dense. So this goes right into the stand mixer here. Again, when you're measuring it out, you want to make sure that it's packed so you get the appropriate measurement. The brown sugar is also going to add a wonderful, rich, caramelly flavor because it has molasses in it, and I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Now, a high quantity of sugar, what that does in a baked good as well is it helps to keep the baked good fresher longer. So if you have a recipe that's high in sugar, it will last a few days. These blondies, they're not gonna last a few days because you're gonna eat them, they're so delicious. So I'm gonna mix this together on low speed until it's just combined. And once this mixture is combined, I'm gonna add the eggs. So I have 3 whole large eggs here, and these are at room temperature. I'm gonna add these eggs one at a time. You can increase the speed to medium. eggs are really high in moisture, and we're adding them to a fat mixture here, so we don't want to add them all at once, because what that's gonna do is it would encourage this mixture to break. So we want a nice, consistent, even batter. And the last egg goes in. And now for a little bit of flavor, I'm using vanilla extract here, and I'm using about a tablespoon here. And you want this mixture to mix up for about 3 minutes. And you might say, wow, that seems like a pretty long time. It looks like it's already come together right now. But what that is doing is it's agitating the eggs and encouraging a little bit of volume to build, which will give a loftiness to your blondies. It's certainly not gonna make them light and fluffy. This is not a light and fluffy recipe, guys, but it does help in terms of leavening the batter to allow it to mix a little bit. So this looks good, and now I'm going to add the dry ingredients, that flour mixture here. Add it all in at once. And then just mix this together until it's barely combined. Now, we don't want to over mix this because we're adding the flour. We don't want to develop gluten. We don't want to make these tough. These are going to be dense, but density is different than a tough texture. So this looks pretty good here, guys. You can see the flour hasn't fully incorporated into the batter, because now I'm gonna add in some additional ingredients. And this is really where you can be creative with this recipe. So the basic formula, the basic base batter is this. So follow me up until this point. But now you can get creative and customize this recipe however you see fit. So what are some options? Well, nuts are always really great in a blondie. I have peanuts here. You could do walnuts. Even cashews would be fantastic. I'm using pecans today. Another great item that's really fantastic in blondies are toffee bits, and that's what I'm gonna be using today. Now, toffee bits are that caramel-like candy that has a lot of butter in it, so it's rich and sweet and decadent. But now, dried fruits are also really fantastic in a blondie as well. I have apricots here in front of me. Sour cherries or dried cranberries are really great because they add in a nice tart flavor, a little bit of acidity that offsets all of the sweetness and the fat that's in your blondie. Chocolate, who doesn't love chocolate, you guys? So whatever your favorite chocolate is, it can be milk chocolate, it could be semi-sweet chocolate, it could be white chocolate, or a combination of all of those. And you can use little bite-sized pieces like this, or you can throw in some chocolate chips, whatever you have on hand. And last but not least, which is really fantastic, especially if you're gonna go with like the cashew and chocolate combination, would be to add in a little bit of coconut. Now, I have sweetened shredded coconut here, and then I also have a non-sweetened version that's just larger in flakes, that's toasted. So it's up to you. You can mix and match as you see fit. Now, today I'm using, in terms of quantities, a cup of nuts and a cup of the toffee bits. That's a bare minimum that you need to add to this recipe. So if you want something that's really chunky and has a lot of texture to it, go up in quantity. So add 1.5 cups of nuts if you'd like. So these go right into your batter, and then we're gonna mix this until it's just combined. And this looks good, and it smells fantastic, you guys. So I'm gonna take the paddle attachment off, release the bowl. I'm gonna give this a good scrape, and I have a 9 by 13 inch baking pan here that's been buttered and lined with parchment, and then buttered again and lightly floured. And it does have a 2-inch overhang here, you guys. This is one of the tricks we like to teach you, so that it's easy to get the blondies out of the pan when they're baked. So this goes into your baking pan. You want to smooth it out into a nice even layer. So just smooth this out with your rubber spatula into the corners. Now, it might seem as though this batter is really, really thin in the pan, but this will puff up slightly from the eggs, from the leavener that we've added. So right into your 350-degree oven, and this will bake for 35 to 40 minutes. And you can test it with a toothpick or a cake tester in the middle of the pan. Now, you want to see moist crumbs, guys, because we don't want to overbake this. We still want this to have a good amount of moisture so it's not dry and cakey. So right into the oven, guys. So the blondies are out of the oven, and they've cooled completely on the wire rack here. Using the parchment overhang, shimmy this out of the pan, guys. right onto your cutting board here, and I'm just gonna slice this into small pieces. Now, remember guys, these are really high in fat and sugar, so a little piece goes a long way. Look inside here, guys. You can see how rich this is and dense, and it's gonna be really chewy. It's not dry and cakey and crumbly at all. And I'm gonna give this a tiny little cut here. Serve these in small wedges. Now, again, guys, this is a base recipe. This is a formula for you to use and kind of mix and match as you see fit with what you have in your pantry or what you really like. So there you go, guys. Enjoy. And as always, guys, click like and subscribe.